Welcome to Part 3, the final part of this module. Parts 1 and 2 established the theoretical foundations and the empirical evidence base for the sociology of AI. Part 1 introduced theoretical frameworks, AI as socially produced and sustained, and AI as a socio-technical system. Part 2 surveyed key research clusters, the historical development of the field, how algorithms function socially, and how AI intensifies social inequalities. Part 3 now asks the forward-looking questions. Why does all of this matter? What does sociology add to AI research that other disciplines do not provide? And how should a genuinely interdisciplinary AI research agenda be structured? The argument of this part is that sociology matters because AI is not only a technical phenomenon, it is a social one. And understanding it well, governing it responsibly, and building it more justly requires the structural, historical, and institutional questions that sociology is uniquely equipped to ask. This slide maps the 4 strands of argument in Part 3. Each a distinct contribution sociology makes to AI research. First, inequality is built into AI from the beginning through design choices, data practices, and institutional arrangements. Second, going beyond the system itself, attending to the organizational, historical, and political context in which AI operates. Third, recognizing AI's transformative potential, its capacity not merely to exist with existing social processes, but to fundamentally change them. Fourth, the decolonial perspective, examining whose knowledge AI encodes, whose interests it serves, and what historical relationships of extraction and dependency it reproduces. Together, they constitute the sociological case for an interdisciplinary research agenda, one that begins with social problems rather than technical systems. The first strand of Part 3's argument builds directly on the empirical findings of Part 2. Benjamin, Noble, and Joyce et al. Showed us that AI intensifies inequalities. Part 3 asks, what follows from this for how we study and build AI? The answer that Joyce et al. Give is that sociologists need to examine inequality not as something that creeps into AI after the fact, through bugs, biased data, or bad intentions, but as something that is built in from the beginning, through the ordinary processes of AI design, implementation, and use. This is a stronger and more precise claim than the general observation that AI can be biased. It locates the problem in the social structure of AI production itself. Joyce et al.'s claim that inequalities are built into AI from the beginning generates 3 sets of structural questions that sociology is uniquely equipped to ask. These are not questions that can be answered by examining the algorithm or the data set alone. They require sociological inquiry into the institutions, power relations, and structural inequalities within which AI is produced and deployed. The first set of questions is about institutions. Which organizations build AI, and what interests shape what they build? The dominant AI systems are produced by a small number of very large, very wealthy, predominantly US-based technology companies. The questions of who funds AI research, who sits on the boards of AI companies, and who is absent from the rooms where key decisions are made are sociological questions with significant implications for whose problems AI is designed to solve. The second set is about power. Whose values are encoded? Every AI system involves choices about what to optimize for, what counts as a correct output, and what kinds of errors are acceptable. These are not technical choices, they are value choices, and they tend to reflect the values and interests of those who hold power in the organizations producing AI. The third set is about inequality. Who benefits and who bears the costs? The costs of AI, environmental, labor, social, tend to be borne by marginalized communities, while the benefits tend to accrue to those who are already relatively advantaged. The key insight is that these outcomes are not accidents of implementation. They are built in from the beginning through the ordinary social processes of AI production. Understanding and changing them requires structural intervention, not just technical improvement. The second strand extends the first. Not only are inequalities built into AI from the start, the mainstream conversation about AI tends to obscure this by focusing on properties of the system itself. Is it accurate? Is it fair? Can it explain its decisions? These are important questions, but they remain internal to the system. They take for granted the institutional context in which the system is deployed. Kudina and Van de Poel, whose work on the socio-technical systems perspective we encountered in part one, make this point directly and give it practical force through an extended example. This slide presents the core contrast between the mainstream focus on AI systems and the sociological insistence on context. The left column shows the questions that dominate technical and policy discussions of AI. And while they are important, they are internal to the system. They evaluate the system as if it were a standalone object with fixed priorities. The right column shows the questions that sociology insists on adding. Kudina and Van de Poel illustrate that this through the case of AI in welfare fraud detection, which we encountered in part one. Importantly, the AI system does not operate in a vacuum. Its consequences are determined not by its technical properties alone, but by the institutional, political, and social context in which it operates. Sociology's contribution is to make that context visible and to insist that it be addressed as part of evaluating and governing AI. The third strand makes the urgency of sociological engagement with AI explicit. AI is not simply a more powerful version of earlier information technologies. It introduces a qualitatively different kind of technological agent into social systems, one that can learn, adapt, and interact in ways that earlier tools could not. This adaptive quality means that AI's effects on institutions cannot be predicted or controlled simply by designing the system well at the outset. AI systems evolve in deployment, and their effects on the institutions that use them may be transformative in ways that no one anticipated. This is precisely why the sociological imagination, sensitive to institutions, power, and unintended consequences, is not a luxury for AI research, but a necessity. Kudina and Van de Poel make a precise and important argument about what makes AI qualitatively different from earlier information technologies. Earlier technologies like databases, spreadsheets, and even search engines are essentially passive tools. They do exactly what they are designed to do in the ways they are designed to do it. They are powerful, but their effects are predictable and bounded. AI systems are different. They are adaptive. They learn from feedback and change their behavior over time. They are interactive. They respond to users and environments in ways that were not fully anticipated at the moment of design. And because of these properties, they are transformative. They do not simply automate existing processes, but can change the nature of those processes, alter distributions of power and resources, and create new forms of dependency and vulnerability. This has profound implications for every major social institution. In law, AI may alter how evidence is evaluated, how cases are decided, and what counts as due process. In democracy, AI shapes information environments, targets political messages, and may affect the conditions under which democratic deliberation can occur. In education, AI can transform how learning is assessed, what knowledge is valued, and what teaching means. In healthcare, AI changes how diagnoses are made, what treatments are recommended, and how care is distributed. In each of these domains, the introduction of AI is not simply a matter of efficiency improvement. It is a potential transformation of fundamental social arrangements. This is why Kudina and Van de Poel argue that the governance of AI requires not just technical expertise, but sociological, legal, ethical, and historical perspectives, the full range of the social sciences and humanities. The stakes are too high for a purely technical approach. The fourth strand brings a decolonial perspective to bear on the implications for research practice. We encountered Mohammed et al.'s work in part one, the concept of algorithmic coloniality, and part two, how AI reproduces patterns of extraction and dispossession. Part three asks, what concrete strategies follow from a decolonial approach? The authors outline three, which move from the technical to the pedagogical to the political. Together, they constitute a comprehensive agenda for what they call decolonial AI, an approach to AI development and governance that is grounded in solidarity with the communities that typically bear AI's costs. Mohammed et al.'s three strategies for decolonial AI are important because they move from critique to prescription, from identifying what is wrong to proposing what should be done differently. First, critical technical practice. This strategy works at the level of technical choices, datasets, benchmark tasks, model architectures, and asks what social and political commitments are encoded in each. The critical insight is that technical choices are never neutral. They always encode assumptions about what is normal, what is valuable, and who counts. Making these commitments visible is a first step toward challenging them. Concretely, this means asking who labeled the training data and according to what categories? What does the benchmark measure and what does it miss? Whose definition of normal or correct is built into the evaluation metric? In the second strategy, reverse tutelage with reciprocal pedagogies. This strategy challenges the hierarchical assumption that knowledge flows only from technical experts to the communities affected by AI. It calls for learning from the communities that are typically positioned as the objects of AI system, subjects of surveillance, targets of prediction, beneficiaries of aid, and treating them as knowers with their own expertise. In practice, this means co-design processes that genuinely center community priorities, participatory data governance, and community-led audits of AI systems. The third strategy is revival of effective and political communities. This is the most explicitly political strategy. Mohammed et al. Argue that ethical AI is not only a matter of better technical practice or more inclusive design processes, it requires the rebuilding of solidarity networks and political communities capable of holding AI developers and deployers accountable over time. Technical critique without political organization tends to be absorbed and neutralized by the institutions it challenges. Collective action, labor organizing, civil society coalitions, international solidarity is necessary. The three strategies are complementary and mutually reinforcing. Technical critique opens space for pedagogical reorientation, which supports political mobilization. We now turn to the practical implications of the module's argument. What does all of this mean for how interdisciplinary AI research should actually be organized and conducted? The key principle can be stated simply. Interdisciplinary AI research should not begin with technology. It should not start by treating an AI system as an isolated technical object and asking how to make it more accurate, efficient, or fair in the abstract. It should begin with the social problem the system is meant to address. This is a fundamental reorientation, one that has significant implications for how research teams are composed, how problems are framed, and how results are evaluated. These three questions, what is the social problem? What is the institutional context? Who is affected? Are the practical core of the interdisciplinary research agenda this module points toward. They are designed to reorient research practice from technology first to problem first, from system internal to context sensitive, and from expert centered to people centered. The first question, what is the social problem, challenges the framing that often drives AI development. We have a powerful new technology. Now, what can we do with it? This is a supply driven model of technology development. The alternative, sociologically informed model asks, what social problem needs to be addressed? Who experiences it? How have others tried to address it? What would a just solution look like? Only then does the question of whether AI is an appropriate tool arise. The second question, what is the institutional context, operationalizes the insight from Kudina and Van de Poel that context is constitutive. It asks research teams to map the organizational setting before evaluating the technical system. What institution deploys this AI? What are its historical practices and power relations? What incentive structures shape how it uses the system? Are there gaps between official policy and actual practice? The third question, who is affected, operationalizes the decolonial and sociological insistence on centering the experiences of those who bear AI's costs. It asks not only whether the system produces accurate outputs in aggregate, but whether the people most affected by it, often the most vulnerable, were consulted in its design, whether they can understand its outputs, and whether they have meaningful recourse when it fails them. The right column on each card shows how each question shifts the evaluative standard from is it accurate to is it solving the right problem, from does it meet benchmarks to does it function justly in this institution, from are outputs fair to are affected communities genuinely represented. This slide makes explicit why the sociological approach does not displace other disciplines, but provides a framework for integrating them. The three questions from the previous slide cannot be answered by any single discipline. Technical expertise is essential for understanding how AI models work, what their performance characteristics are, and what their failure modes are. Sociological expertise is essential for examining institutional context, structural inequality, and the social consequences of deployment. Legal expertise is required to assess accountability mechanisms, rights frameworks, and regulatory options. Historical expertise helps trace the legacies of colonialism, of labor relations, of institutional development that shape current AI systems and their effects. Ethical and philosophical expertise is needed to evaluate the normative trade-offs involved. When values conflict, how should they be prioritized? The key point is that sociology provides the integrating framework. It is sociology's sensitivity to institutions, power, and inequality that provide the common thread connecting technical, legal, historical, and ethical analysis. Sociology asks the questions that make the other disciplines' contributions intelligible in relation to each other. Not is this model accurate, is this decision legal, and is this fair as separate questions, but what does it mean for this system to function justly in this institutional context for these people with these consequences? This is why the model has argued throughout that the sociological approach is foundational, not supplementary. We now move to the conclusion of the entire model. This slide introduces the closing argument. The sociological imagination, C. Wright Mills's term for the capacity to connect individual experience to larger social structures, is not a luxury for AI research. It is a necessity. AI is a social phenomenon. It is produced by institutions, shaped by power, embedded in inequality, and transformative of the social domains into which it is introduced. Understanding it well requires the structural, historical, and relational questions that sociology is equipped to ask. The following slide presents the module's key conclusions. This slide draws together the entire module's argument across all three parts. Part 1 established the theoretical foundations. The sociology of AI treats it as socially constructed, embeds it in socio-technical systems, and synthesizes these insights into the concept of AI as a stratified socio-technical formation. Simultaneously constructed, embedded, extractive, reproductive, and contested. Part 2 provided the empirical evidence. Liu's historical survey showed how the field has developed. Amore, Beer, Borel, and Kristen showed how algorithms function socially. And Benjamin, Noble, and Joyce documented how AI intensifies structural inequalities. Part 3 has drawn out the implications. Joyce et al. Showed that inequalities are built in from the start and require structural questions. Kudina and Van de Poel showed that context is constitutive and that AI's transformative potential makes sociological analysis urgent. And Mohammed et al. Outlined three strategies for decolonial AI. The closing argument is that the sociological imagination is essential for AI. This is not a claim that sociology is more important than computer science or engineering. It is a claim that without sociology, without attention to institutions, power, inequality, and historical context, AI research produces an impoverished picture of what AI is and does. And that impoverished picture leads to systems that work technically but fail socially, and to governance frameworks that address symptoms while leaving structural causes intact. This concludes the module on the sociology of AI. Please see the final slides of parts 1 and 2 for the references included in this module.